it might sound like information you've heard before, but I I genuinely think you have to start small. You have to start with the smallest thing you can do. The most minimum, I call it the minimum viable product, right?
Mm,
Which is kind of just which is an idea, which is just like the least amount of work you can do to actually ship the product
mm,
across. So when you're trying to actually rebuild your life, the whole goal is to transform, right? The whole goal is to actually take action and take the steps to get there. And in order to take the action, I feel like it has to be something you want to do.
mm,
If you don't want to do it, you're probably not gonna do it.
mm,
So you're gonna have to actually do the smallest possible thing that will push you towards your goal. For me, I started by drinking water. That was it.
mm.
Drink water. That was it. If I drank water, that was a successful day. And that's something I'm going to do anyway because I get thirsty. I'm human. I'm going to drink water. So it's like you start small. And once you start small and start taking action, I will say action is the most important thing as well.
Mm,
You
mm,
have to take action. You can't just sit there and do nothing with your life. No matter how comfortable, no matter how familiar it feels, you have to take action. And yeah, do the smallest thing you can do. That's gonna make you do it. I think that's the way forward
mm,
because once you start taking the action, you start building clarity, you start building momentum, and that kind of compounds into different actions. It's like, oh, I drank water today.
mm,
Good for me. Maybe I can do something else. Brush my teeth, maybe.
mm.
Yeah, good for me. I'll make a good breakfast today. Good for me. And it just builds upon itself slowly but surely. 0. People say 1% a day. I say 0.01% a day, man. Shit. Anything which is going to push you forward. One word in the journal, just
Mm,
hi,
mm, mm,
one little thing, one line on the drawing paper, and that could spark so much more. Because yeah, you could take one step, but on some days you might take 10.
mm,
Some days you might take 50.
mm.
Sometimes you might not take a step at all. But yeah, just take action, man. Take action. you know Time waits for no man. Time waits for no man.
Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Jeoffrey Sarpong podcast. Today, I'm here with Jason. Jason, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm living. I'm alive. And it feels good to be alive as well, to be honest.
Feels good to be speaking to you, man. Feels good.
Yeah.
Feels like we haven't had one of these in so
A
long.
long time, man. It's been a while.
There's
It's been a
Jason.
while for sure.
You're one of the classic members
Yes.
of my of this podcast, classic people that I speak to. So first, easy question: how are you, man? How are you doing today?
How am I
Speaking
doing
for today, how are you?
You know, when people used to ask me this question, I used to be like, that's a loaded question to ask me. Like that's a bit too much for me to answer at this point in time because I didn't know how I was. I was all over the place. Just. Anyway, but I'm doing good. I'm glad to say I'm actually doing good. I'm feeling a lot better. I have an idea of what I'm doing with my life and where I'm going. There's structure in place, there's systems in place, and there's order in place. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling hopeful about the future, most importantly as well. So
And a lot's happened over the past
lots,
since we last spoke, right? A lot has happened.
lot has happened, man.
Not to get into the nitty gritty details, but just can you give us a little bit of like where you've been?
Where have I been? Whew. Well, where do I even start with that? For the main part, basically I've had many different episodes, mental health episodes, right? Psychosis, twice in the last 2 years, 2024, 2025. So I spent a few months in the mental health ward, of course, and because of that, I went through like a complete shift in identity and perspective. I completely lost my sense of self-worth, lost my sense of self-identity, self-esteem, confidence, all of these different things. Was in a hopeless state and a hopeless language state, essentially. No energy, no motivation, no hope for the future at all. Didn't know where I was going in my life, didn't know what I was doing. And yeah, that's where I've been. I've just been kind of surviving, essentially. Surviving at doing the bare minimum to just keep me moving forward to get from one day to the next day. you know
And I'm very proud of it, bro, because like, you know, like what you said, and people don't even know the level of the details and how it's, and I know that we've spoke about this many times.
Of course.
But yeah, like from there to where you are now, it's an incredible journey.
I would say so.
It's a 0 to 1 change.
It surprised me as well.
You know, and I think for me, what's very important for this podcast I like to do is to inspire people.
Yes.
To show people the human experience, the kind of like how big it is, how broad it is, but also inspirational people to kind of show us that, you know, we can all make that change ourselves. And your story has made me very, very proud to be your friend, brother.
That's crazy.
I appreciate that, man. Honestly, man, because I know the depths that you've been, and I know what you've done to get out of it, and you've always been honest to me, you know, to show me when you're not good, you're not good. You tell me, and to see you kind of go from where you are to where you are now. I wanted to get you on today to kind of speak about that transition, how you made that transition, so we can also talk about it and how others can make that transition themselves too.
Of course.
Okay, so let's talk about identity then, like, because
identity, most important thing, really and truthfully.
You said that you kind of lost your sense of identity.
Yep.
How did that feel like? But also, what is it now to rebuild a new type of identity once that's happened?
So yeah, I'll probably start with my own personal experience, right? So I've had 4 Psychosis episodes basically, and in each of those episodes of Psychosis, you know, you get into a heightened sense of I don't know how to say ideology essentially. So everything that I was studying, so basically, I kind of started a journey where I was trying to learn kind of truth and understanding, develop knowledge and wisdom. I've been doing that for a long time, even before the Psychosis episodes. But when the Psychosis episodes actually happened, then all of that information kind of flooded in at once, you know. And for me, it felt like I was connected to some higher purpose, some higher divine sense of, you know, cosmic consciousness or something like that. And it was just pure delusion. But when you're in that state, it's so intense. It's so intense, and it feels like... it really feels like you've unlocked something so much deeper than what most people have experienced with their lives, basically. And for me, it didn't become my identity because it was kind of the foundations of my identity before the Psychosis. But after my first 2 episodes, I kind of stuck with that delusion in that same sense where it was like, okay, I'm connected to this higher source. I'm feeling the signs and synchronicities. The universe is conspiring and it's working for me. You know, I'm moving forward with my life. It's pushing me towards this direction. But really and truthfully, what it was just me kind of following my subconscious impulses, right? But basically, after the last 2, that completely shattered. My identity completely shattered because I realized, it was pure delusion. None of the stuff that I was thinking about and the theory that I had was actually functional in my life. I realized I wasn't the person I thought I was. I'm actually I was worse off than I generally thought I was. And I just completely didn't know who I was at the end of it, you know? Like, there was no shred of like, oh, this is who I am. This is how I maneuver. This is how I function in the world. Right? And it's a very tough thing to experience. Very tough thing to experience because it's such a there's such a difference between that heightened sense of feeling and emotion and elation, basically, ecstasy, if you will, and then you get reduced back to the normal state or even down to your baseline as well. Because when you're in the mental health hospital, they give you medication. I'm on antipsychotics now as we speak as well, and all of that is just bundled together to just wreck my brain completely. You know, my memory's not as sharp as it once was. I can't articulate myself as much as I once could. And you know, just memories are just,
I think that's very difficult also for someone who prides himself in articulation and memory and in intellectualism.
Indeed.
You know, I feel like the journey that you were on kind of was fostered to help you have some sort of understanding about yourself. Like you were saying, you had some universal truths that you found. But I think in order to find those, you had to kind of get into a level of kind of understanding that you could articulate. And that gave you some strength to push on in your life. And so when you lose that, That also goes along with your identity, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it does, because now that I've slowed down and now that I realize, okay, all of this information, there may have been some truth to it. Yeah, there may have been some understanding, and I could have had some good ideas even during my psychosis. I realize now, if it's not functional and if it doesn't actually have the power to transform my life, and if I don't take action to actually maneuver within my life, then it's not anything I want to deal with, basically. So I want things that are functional, because what true power is the ability to actually change the status quo and maintain that as well.
That comes down to, sorry to interrupt, but that comes down to kind of rebuilding your life.
Yes.
Because I wanted to look at it in 3 stages. Obviously, first of what happened, how that kind of affected you, but also how you rebuilt it. I think that last part is the part that I'm really inspired by, because the first 2, people get stuck there.
Yeah.
They get stuck in that system, and then that's it. They're done. Like, the society kind of leaves them behind.
Yeah.
But you've literally taken yourself by the scruff of your own neck and dragged yourself up one day at a time. Talk more about that experience, how that was for you.
Honestly, I like what you said at the end of that, one day at a time, because that's genuinely how it feels. Especially because for me, I was an addict 10 years, smoking weed all the time, drinking alcohol just to basically function in life. Basically, I couldn't really go a single day without smoking weed. And when you're quitting addiction, one of the mantras you should have is one day at a time, because it's easy to think, oh, I need to quit this drug for the rest of my life. I can never pick it up. That kind of thought process, it tends to lead people to actually go back, because it's like, oh, they start getting nervous, they start getting anxious, they start getting kind of scared about the fact that, I can't actually do this anymore. And then like a baby, it's like, I got this from Alan Carr's How to Quit Smoking book. Like a baby, it's like, I can't have that thing, why, start crying. And then you start reaching out for it even more. And that's how it should be, one day at a time. You're literally just trying to make it to the next day, to the next day, to the next day, and what do you call it? And in that regard, it's like you kind of just have to keep pushing forward. Like, it might feel like there is no hope, and that's how I felt for the longest time. Sometimes I still feel like that, but you still have to continue pushing forward, because I realized there's nothing else you can actually do. There's really 2 options: stay stagnant, or you can move forward with your life, because either way you're moving in a direction. You're moving in a direction either way you look at it. So you might as well choose the one which is going to push you forward and actually make your life better.
Yeah, you mentioned like being there where it's like stagnant. You feel that stagnation. Talk to me about that, because I wanna paint a picture for where you were, because like like you see you now, dapper, leather jacket, come on, great smile. It's very easy for them to not understand like that, like the depths of where you were, and I don't want to take you back there, but I think it's good for people to understand that the journey, like because I've been there also. Like sometimes it does get lonely. It does you in some total darkness of loneliness, and you don't want to get out of your bed and you're in your house all day. So when you were very stagnant, what was that like? How did you feel?
Honestly, I think it's what it looked like on the surface. I think a lot of people can relate to, which is basically just no activity, is complete inaction. You're literally rotting in your bed. Life is just passing you by. You're not actually experiencing life anymore. You're literally just in your bed, not even going outside, barely drinking water, barely eating, doing the bare minimum just to survive until the next day. The way I say it, can I swear?
Of course, bro. Come on.
The way I say it was eating, shitting, sleeping, and smoking and drinking. That was the only 5 activities that I would push myself to do.
Like 7 deadly sins, bro.
7 deadly sins.
It's like a new 7 deadly sins.
Greed, lust. It's crazy, man. Trust me. I was in the clutches of evil.
Yeah.
That's one way to describe it.
Yeah.
Clutches of pure evil,
And how did you... Sorry, finish.
Yeah, I was just shackled to my impulses, shackled to my urges. I had no self-control, no impulse control. There was a lack of responsibility, a lack of willpower and volition. All of these things which are just necessary for you to actually move forward and produce something out of your life. It was just not existing within the mindset and within me at that point in time, you know.
And how do you go from that experience, that reality, to change? How do you go from that kind of feeling to kind of like, because, you know, wrapped around in that is loneliness, is addiction, it's like, you know, self-hate, self-loathing, like all of that wrapped into one. How did you get out of that? What was the first thing that helped you on that journey?
What was there's a thought in my head, but I feel like there's a step before it.
Okay.
There's a step before it. I don't know. But despite all of that, despite all of those situations, for me, I still held on to the idea that, maybe I can change my life, you know. It wasn't exactly hope, it wasn't exactly motivation, but it's like, I know if I do certain things, then my life will change and I can actually change my life for the better. So maybe there was a little bit of hope still within me, you know, a little bit of faith that, I can actually improve my situation. But I just never acted upon it, you know, in that state. I just didn't have the energy to actually, or the drive to actually act upon it. But what I realized is you have to start somewhere, you know, you have to start from somewhere. You have to meet yourself where you're at. And you have to first become aware of the actual situation you are under right now. Like identity, purpose, goals, values, beliefs, convictions, ideals, you know, all of these different things. You must first be aware of all of these things that kind of make up your identity, right? Because the goal is to actually gain knowledge of yourself, right? And with knowledge comes power. The power to actually change the status quo. And then once you start changing, once you start examining your life, I should say, and really seeing yourself for who you are, then you can begin to operate, you can begin to move into the world with that knowledge and see how you affect the world and see how the world affects you. And then after that, you start developing wisdom and you start understanding what is going on. And you start developing wisdom and an understanding of
what is going on. You were right, bro. Yeah, what is going on, and like how to actually move within that.
What is going on? Yeah, how to move within it, and like what works and what doesn't work, especially, you know.
But let's take a couple steps back, because you said something that's super interesting. You mentioned we'll go from knowledge to power, and then for power you can actually start affecting the world. That transition from knowledge to power. Talk to me about that. Is it first knowledge of self, or like you mentioned all those things that you had to do? How do you sit down? Was it like you sit down with a book and you go, "This is my issue. I've got this in purpose. I'm this," or how do you acquire that knowledge?
It takes form in so many ways and shapes and form. For me, it was a lot of journaling, like just writing about my day, writing about my experiences, how I felt about those experiences, writing about my past experiences, what I could have done differently, how I approached those situations, and what I thought about those things. You know, because all of these things, they give you knowledge and they give you insight about yourself as well. But also how other people, when I would speak to other people, my family, my friends, the ones that stuck around there, and just it's about like expressing yourself in any way, shape or form. And I'll be honest, social media was one way I kind of it acted like a mirror, to be honest. It articulated thoughts to me that helped me to actually relate to them and have an understanding of where I am in life as well. You know, because there is a lot of negativity and toxicity behind social media, but it really can be a place where it reveals to you not who you really are, but attributes about yourself that you didn't actually know about yourself, you know.
Dude, 100%. You put it right. You said it's a mirror. Like, so many times we send each other memes and you just be like, this person is speaking facts. Like, you just feel facts and you don't even know who they are, but they just pop up and they're speaking so much truth about your experience, and you think, like, how do they know me like that? But it's like, I think it's a universal thing that they're picking up on. And it's so real that, okay, now let's come back to the day one of change. You know, what did that feel like? What was it when you put the knowledge and you actually start changing? Because you said it's one day at a time, but there was a day where I remember vividly where you stopped doing those bad habits so unconsciously. Where you start realizing and you start making a change towards that, where addiction became less, where all of these things were kind of like, kind of acted upon. What was that like?
So, I don't know. For me, I think I was lucky. I think I was really, really lucky. So basically, I just had a really bad experience with drugs, and that really highlighted my perspective, my situation, and it was just such a wild experience that it kind of, it showed me what different perspectives is going on, like from a different point of view, what is actually happening in my life. You know, I got incredibly paranoid about what was going on, and I kind of just decided that day, like, yeah, it's now or never. I really genuinely have two options in this life, you know. It's either I fucking kill myself or I actually move forward towards something better. And that was what do you call it? That was I don't know what the word I'm looking for is.
Dark?
Not dark, but it was a reality shifting.
Yeah, right, like cold water, like clarity.
It is clarity. It was like, damn. I have all this life, I got all this existence, I got all this potential that I'm not living up to. My family's watching me suffer. My friends are all gone. They left me behind, left me for dead. You know, I still had some close friends like you, a couple others, Ugo, Ishmael. They all checked up on me, and they're all watching me just keep going down the same path that I was going down. And something just clicked in my brain. I was like, what am I doing with my life? You know. It's either I move forward in my life or fucking end it here now, you know what I mean? And I chose the latter, or the former, I should say. So I was like...
You know, that's so beautiful, because that reminds me of, like, come back to identity too.
Yeah.
I think in those moments, because I've had those moments too, in those moments, you really have a choice of who you think you are.
Yeah.
Who you accept yourself to be.
Yeah.
Are you a person who has potential to change? Or are you a person who has no potential to change? And in that moment, for me, I was looking at myself in the mirror, like literally seeing myself, talk to myself, going like, well, who decide now? Who do you want to be?
Exactly. And
then you make that choice in that moment, right?
Comes down to that, for real. For real. That's such an important thing. Yeah, self-talk is such an important thing as well, you know. Like like the story that you actually tell yourself, the narrative that you believe you're under, you know. It's important to be honest and truthful about what's actually going on in your life, and not to be delusional and to make yourself out to be the hero in the situation, or, you know, not the perpetrator, or not the victim, or whatever, you know. But there's also the ability, you have to realize that you can change your story, you know. Your narrative is not set in stone. Your identity is not set in stone. Your personality is not set in stone. You know, really and truthfully, your identity is just a bundle of your purpose, goals, values, ideals, beliefs, actions, behaviors, and all these other things, you know. They all contribute to what identity you hold and what story you tell yourself. So self-talk is such an important thing.
100%. I think self-identity too, like understanding who you are and who you could be.
Yeah.
I think we all have these like kind of like disparate identities within us that we don't kind of acknowledge or take hold of or try to like further develop. You know, for me, like to get specific, for example, for me, I always loved sports and I've always loved art. But like when I was in those moments, I was just like not achieving that, not going after those goals at all. I just had this idea that, maybe I'll do it in the future. And this idea that if I did it, I would be really good at it. But if I really had the motivation, I'd be very, very good at this. And I kept telling myself, it was always like this two-step thing where it's like, if I could really do this, I'd be
amazing.
Then I realized, wait, what do you mean if I could?
Yeah, it's like let me actually do it, you know, let me actually get it done. And I think that's such an important thing, because I feel like people actually, they always live in that state of potentiality. You know, it's like, I could do this, but they end up not doing it, like you talked about. You know? And we really have to cross that bridge from if I could do it to I'm going to do it. Or I'm doing it, basically, you know. I'm getting it done, you know. And that's the mindset I had for a long time. I realized, like, kind of robotic in a sense that if I wanted to do something, then I'll go and do it. You know? But that's another challenge in itself, you know, getting from crossing that point from I need to do this thing, so let me go and do it, you know.
Yeah, I think it's also just, deep is how you view, is what philosophy of life, right? Are you a determinist or you're free will? Do you think everything we go through is like a set of actions that we're just reacting to? So do you have the free will to be able to change that and to do what you want? Funny enough, I'm going to ask you that question.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you lie on that scale? Do you think we're self-deterministic kind of reality, or do you think we have free will to do whatever we choose to?
In a weird way, I think it's a bit of both, because for some reason I always feel like when I look at black and white, I always realize there's a gray in the middle. There's always a middle path to actually walk down. So I feel like we do have free will, but we are kind of programmed in a way to actually act a certain way, which might be, kind of deterministic, right? Whether that's God, which programmed us with like a spirit and like a soul for us to actually move forward and animate our bodies and animate our lives, whether that's just like societal programming or, civilization, the collective consciousness of other people's beliefs and lived experiences and all of these other things. I feel like subconsciously, we like 90% of our actions and behaviors are actually controlled by the subconscious. Only 10% of our consciousness actually, plays an effect, a role in what we actually do. So it's kind of deterministic in the aspect of everything that we've forgotten about, everything that we've intentionally forgotten about, or things that just, that weren't in our conscious mind, or that slipped under into the unconscious. Those urges, those temptations, those impulses, those actions and behaviors, they influence all of those things, right? And they can, in a way, move us towards certain, I guess, actions and behaviors, certain activities, right? So you could say it's kind of deterministic in that way, but I believe we also have the ability to bring up those unconscious experiences, those unconscious thoughts, impulses, urges, and temptations into the conscious mind, and actually change the trajectory of those things. Right?
On that point, then, how do you make sense of what you can control, what you can't control? That's basically what you're talking about, right? Defining those two buckets. But how does one do that? How does one realize what about themselves that they can actually control, and what's something that's kind of like self-deterministic based on their habits or trauma? Or is it like a thing where you can turn everything from one bucket into another bucket with enough will and effort?
Honestly, I'm on the perspective of the latter, where you can actually turn all of your pain, all of your suffering, all of that trauma into progress, into growth, into improvement, But it's a very difficult thing. I'm still like figuring out how to answer that question really and truthfully. It's definitely a very difficult question to answer.
I feel like the only thing I've figured out about that, right, to me, it's this threefold. First off, is the acceptance of it, right? Like, that's almost the hardest part.
Yep.
The acceptance of which bucket is actually in. Like, if you are, let's say you've got like, trauma from when you were a kid, right? Yeah. And it shows up in how you relate to other people, how you, maybe it's like a social thing, like, oh, I'm nervous, I can't talk to people. And then maybe because that's how you were brought up. Well, you're an adult now, you have to make a decision. Is that the trauma that is going to be my life because that's just how I am? Or is that like, okay, now I just have to learn how to socialize?
Literally.
And I think you can make a choice either way, but I think it's about the acceptance first of like, okay, this is, like, understanding where it comes from. This is rooted in my childhood, or rooted in, which most things are actually, rooted in just like how I show up, or rooted in this parts of myself. And then how do I make the change? If I want to make the change. Some people don't want to make the change,
Yeah, no, some people actually, they get stuck in their ways. They get stuck in that identity. They get stuck in that narrative that's been caused from their external experience, from their trauma, from their childhood. And it prevents them from actually moving forward, because I feel like it does, that type of information slips into the unconscious, because especially when you're a child, we don't really remember. For me personally, I don't really remember much of my childhood, and certain experiences that may have like caused trauma inside me or whatever. I just realize who I am now, what ideas I have now, and what challenges and obstacles I'm facing now at the moment. So for one aspect, this socialization, socializing. I struggle with that a lot, just talking to people, keeping eye contact, just talking to people. And I think I tell myself I've always been like that, timid and shy ever since I was young. I still remember actually from my childhood when I first entered, I think it was year 1, I just saw it. I was late to the class. I just saw 30 heads turn to me and I just started crying. I was like, what the fuck? I just started crying. Yeah, so it's like things like that. It's things like that. It's like, do you let those things kind of define who you are as an adult when you have the power of volition and willpower to actually change those things? Or do you actually start, moving forward and putting yourself, kind of drip feeding yourself into social situations so you can start, rebuilding? Can you start kind of, making peace and growing from those situations instead,
I think it also comes back down to the stories we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And how we get so obsessed with those stories because we think they make up our lives.
Yeah.
If you tell yourself a story, you are, like I did too, like you're a timid person, you kind of hold on to that story so much because it gives yourself some sense of identity.
It's familiar.
It's familiar. It's who I am. It's who I know myself to be. And then if you keep doing that as you get older and older, it becomes more difficult.
Yeah, it starts reinforcing that idea of who you are, and then boom, that becomes your identity, becomes your personality. And really and truthfully, I think one thing which is wild, I heard, is once a moment has occurred, it's gone. Like if I click my fingers, boom, the person who just clicked his fingers, that moment is gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you can hold on to that thought of he clicked his fingers, and it's like, oh, and if you keep reinforcing the fact that, oh, he clicked his fingers, now he's someone who clicks his fingers.
Yeah.
But
it's like the idea of time is only reinforced by our kind of remembrance of it.
Yeah.
And like our current bringing it up and making like, you got to force people to believe that. I think that's why stories existed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because people weren't able to recognize that action is gone, but okay, we reinforce the story over and over again so the belief grows,
It's true.
But I think it can be used in the wrong way.
It can. It's like forming an attachment to that thing as well,
How do people let go then? How do you let go of that idea of like, because how do you not let go of your own identity by doing that? If you have this identity of who you are and you hold on so strongly to it, and you're, this is who I am, and I know this because this is what I've always been. How does one go about? I know this is like $1 million question.
$1 million.
Psychologists have get paid loads of money to figure out if you want to do this. But from your kind of understanding of what you've been through in your own life, how does one go about, even if they don't get there, and how does one go about making the steps to let go?
Honestly, how do I put this into words? So from my experience of psychosis, when you go into a delusional state, you think you can do anything. You think you enter the realm of potentiality and realize you can manifest anything you want with your 2 hands. Nothing is stopping you. And even in my psychosis, I realized, I'll say a personal story. I'm a fucking simp. I used to be a simp. I used to be a hardcore simp. Putting women on pedestals. Yearning for that intimate love. All of that. And I realized, kind of during my psychosis, that I needed that identity to die. I needed to let go of that identity. So what did I do? I was like, I need to burn the boats. Straight Friedrich Nietzsche. I need to burn the boats. I need to completely distance myself from this identity. So how do I do it? I drop the nuke and completely revel in the ashes. That's what the thought process was. And it kind of worked,
It's not healthy.
It's not healthy at all. It's very destructive. But
I understand.
It worked, Sometimes you have to... the main point I'm trying to make by saying that is you have to realize that your identity isn't who you are. The story you tell yourself and the narrative that you tell yourself isn't who you are. So if you, quote unquote, burn the boats and do something to kind of interrupt or destroy that identity, then you kind of realize, okay, it's gone and I'm still here and I'm still alive, right? And I can rebuild from scratch again. I can learn from what I just done and, kind of recover in a sense and build a new identity based on the information that I've received.
Yeah, 100%.
Experience.
I think it's also the willingness to rebuild. I think a lot of the times we we don't want to rebuild. It's so tiring. It's long, you know, and you know, like this, like, you know, and I think also that we get stuck in the, you know, like, I know we've spoken this before. It's like, you know, the people's perception of us.
Yeah.
You know, before prison, the people's perception of us. If you are this type of person, your friends know you're this type of person. You're kind of incentivized to stay as that because you make friends like that. The minute you start being completely different, they'll be like, "Whoa, what's going on? I don't know who
you switched up on me, bro. It's like you're going Hollywood now."
You know, and it's like maybe I just thought my identity was a wrong type. Maybe I thought my personal perception of myself was, you know, misguided, and I wanted to change that. Exactly. But we don't give room for people to make those changes. Or like most people don't do that. You know, good friends do though. You know.
It's true. I think it happens most with families as well because they have a like a hard stuck perception of who you are, and they want it to stay like that for the most part. You know what I mean? And for me, I don't even know. I would say again, my psychosis kind of helped me with it because it showed my family, it showed my friends that maybe this guy isn't who I thought he was. You know? The identity that I thought he was, I can't hold on to that. I don't know what to do with that. I don't understand it. You know what I mean? So, and that kind of freed me up to. That's the thing. The loss of identity for me kind of freed me up to be like, I can be anything I want to be at this point. I just have to put in the steps and take the steps to get there and build that person that I want to be. You know, that's, I think, the highlight of my whole experience with psychosis, you know.
I think also the loss of identity often comes with a loss of meaning. You know, and I want to talk about meaning now because I think, you know, us culture really struggles for meaning. I think because we've let go of all the typical kind of things that previous cultures looked for, religion, family, community, all these things have been kind of broken down. We're more individualistic, but that also means that meaning, if you let go of meaning, you have to kind of rediscover it yourself. What was your journey from, like, you know, from losing meaning, because I know you mentioned, we talked about this, where nothing mattered. You didn't want to do anything at all. So you're having to rebuild what mattered for you again?
Where do I start with that one? I don't know, because I do hold on to the idea that, everything is meaningless. Because I've been reading the Bible, Ecclesiastes,
what was it called?
Ecclesiastes.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
I can't really pronounce it. That word is crazy. But the whole, I think it's like 17 chapters. And through the whole thing, he just says everything is meaningless. He's like, toil is meaningless. Everything under the sun.
I think that guy was a little depressed.
Yeah, he was depressed as hell. He said work is meaningless. Labor is
vanity, all is vanity.
Yeah, bro. And I was relating to that. I was like, you know, this guy's spitting facts shit. I was like, this guy's spitting the facts. But despite all of that, he also spoke about, though it might be all meaningless, that we should enjoy our lives to the fullest, you know what I mean, basically. That's basically what he was trying to say, you know. We should love our wives to the fullest. We should enjoy our lives. We should enjoy the labor that we do and the toil that we do. And I think there's merit in that, you know, there's value in that, right? For me, I needed a reason for me to actually be able to do stuff. And I think that's why I was in such a languid state for so long. You know, I was like, I don't have a reason why. I don't have a strong enough reason to actually do stuff, be productive and be positive, right? And I think I realized that meaning for me doesn't really matter. You know, it doesn't matter if it's meaningless. We still have to do it. We still live this life. You know, we're still alive and we're still here. You know, we still exist. So if I'm here, I might as well do something with my life, you know, even if it is meaningless, even if I'm not going to be the best at it, even if I'm going to suck at it, even if it disappoints my family, all these different things, you know, like I'm going to do something because I want to do it, you know, because I've chosen this pathway for myself, you know, and I don't know if there's meaning in that, but for me, it just felt like, yeah, I can build something, you know. I have the potential to be able to do something. So if I can do it, that would be really fucking cool. That's literally where I'm at, you know.
It feels to me it's more embodied than intellectual when it comes to meaning, because like you're mentioning that is meaningful, like you're doing things in the world to make an impact. That is the definition of meaning, but you can still have doubts over if this actually is meaningful in the end. I think that's what it's about, your scope of vision.
It actually, I agree.
Do you look at things in the minute, or do you look at things in the scope of like the earth?
That's the thing. I used to think of like things kind of, it used to go back and forth, It used to be like a spectrum, like a waveform or something. Sometimes I'll think of it in the grand scheme of things. Sometimes I would isolate down into what I'm actually doing with my life on a smaller scale. But now I kind of think of it on a smaller scale, because I realize at the end, we all end up in the same place, We all have the same destination, which is, death, of course. All right. And I realize nothing, in the grand scheme of things, nothing really matters. It's kind of nihilistic, but at the same time, it's like we're here now. Like I said before, we're here now. If you shrink it down to the smaller scope, everything might be meaningless from that perspective, but we might as well do the things that we want to do with our lives because we have the opportunity to do so.
I mean, for me, at least, I'll tell you how I think. I mean, slight pushback, because I'm optimistic. And I think everything means everything. I think there's two perspectives. Nothing means anything, or everything.
Everything means everything.
Because I think like the idea that nothing means anything in the final analysis is assuming that the minute details you do now doesn't make up the meaning in the end. So like the day-to-day things that you do now, if you think about the end of your life and you go like nothing means anything because I will die in the end of my life, but you're not there yet. You have like how many days we didn't even know how many days, but how many days you live until then. If you do live each day as if it means something, and at the end you reach it having lived a compelling narrative, having looked back and be like, this means something because I lived the narrative. Whether you don't, I think we're almost looking for an outside perspective to prove to us that there's meaning.
True.
Like definitive evidence, as if we're scientists.
True.
But that's not how this world works, and that's not how meaning works.
It doesn't.
It is really like a fake until you make it. It's a lived experience.
It's a fake until you make it situation. I agree with that, to be honest. It's a lived experience, and I think the more you live it, the more you kind of build that. And I think you can build it around until you get to a point where you're not asking yourself those questions anymore. Those questions. I read something when I was young. It's like the problems of philosophy must be tackled preferably before one has to face those questions in real life. And it's like, before you have to face this question, well, once you do, you're done. You go. You stop thinking about what Nietzsche sat there, I don't know what questions he was asking himself. He's actually a G, by the way. I'm not gonna show Nietzsche. He's actually a G. But like, you know what I mean? The over-intellectualization of the world, of the ideas, and I fall prey to it too. But I have to remind myself every time I do that that's not actually helping. It's like you're listening too much to that voice in your head. That's actually true, And I think I like that not helping, because at the end of the day, we all have like ideals that we believe the world should be, how we should act. We all have a belief of what this life means, what the human condition is, and how it should be lived, right? And what do you call it? I think it's got to be something functional, right? It's got to be something functional. You want something functional that's going to help you change your life, right? Or something functional that's going to help you to push you towards your goals and that ideal that you've brought up for yourself, So
on that topic then, is there such a thing as like a functional lie or functional mistruth you tell yourself in order to get yourself, and especially if you're in a dark place, right? What's like an idea of something that's like maybe not true, but like true enough for you in that moment that will help you get past that moment so you can look back on it? You know what I mean?
I think I see what you mean. I don't know, because I think I struggled a lot with self-belief, Like, my mom would always tell me, you have to believe in yourself, believe in God. And I was like, how am I going to believe in God if I don't believe in myself? But, really and truthfully, it's, how do I explain it? You do kind of have to lie to yourself a little bit when you're in a dark place, And even if you feel hopeless, if you feel lack of motivation, if you don't feel any drive, if you feel fear, if you feel guilt, if you feel shame, we have to act in spite of all of those things if we want to push ourselves towards where we're trying to go. You know, if we want to change our lives and transform our lives, we have to actually take action despite all of those negative emotions, all of those negative feelings, right? And the thing is, sometimes you do have to lie to yourself. You know, it might not be like the most integral thing to do, which kind of doesn't agree with my values, because I believe in integrity, in telling the truth, you know, being honest with yourself. But at some point, once you start like we said with identity, you know, once you start reinforcing that narrative, reinforcing that story, then you start to believe it yourself. You know, it starts to become your identity and it starts to become your truth. So if you lie to yourself saying, I can actually do this, I can get better, I can change my life, and the more you tell yourself that, the more you're gonna realize, yeah, I can actually do.
So it's not a lie then.
And so then the lie becomes the truth. You know, even as Scarface said, even when I lie, I'm telling the truth. Even when I lie, I'm telling the truth, man. So
it's like, it reminds me of a Kanye quote. It's like, I'm not right. I'm just not right now.
Yeah, literally.
It's like, and I think it's you know, make it more relatable. There's something to be said about, like, for example, when I'm performing or before I start performing, I think you remember when we used to go to Morocco Bound and I would go up on stage and I was nervous as hell.
So cool.
And I was like, I can't do this. Like, my body was telling me I can't do this. But I had to tell my body, to lie myself, that I'm confident. I know this is nerves of, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I had to lie about the emotions that I was feeling in order to get up there and then do it. And then those turn into what it is, because sometimes your reality doesn't know what it is, and it goes to your first instinct, as if like what you've been taught. And maybe you want to change that. You want to flip that emotion into something else. Sometimes you have to. That's why I do functional lies. You know, lies that will change your.
Functional lies. I like the idea so much. That's such an amazing idea.
Okay, so we spoke a lot about, like, you know, change and growth and, like, you know, where you are now, you know. And I think I want to now give people an idea of, like, what to hold on to. You know, what are some of the stuff that you've learned and what you hold on to now when you have, like, you know, unstable times? Because, like you said, it's one day at a time. So it's not like you're done, you're fixed, you know. It's like, you know, end of the movie, there's still times of struggle. So how do you hold on to stuff when you have those kind of moments still?
I would say basically it's really, it comes down to the structure and order and systems you have in place, really and truthfully, because I think it's Atomic Habits where it said, James Clear said, you don't rise to the level of your systems, you
fall to the level of your habits.
You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems, basically. And for a system, it's basically just something that works in place when you're not actually involved with the whole situation, right? And for me, it's like a system of habits. I've got a system of habits that I kind of look at and put in place. I call it the 6 foundations, because I feel like I've identified 6 foundational or key aspects of human existence that every human being needs to actually focus on or obtain in order to live like a simple, fulfilling, and honest life. Right? Physical, mental, creative, cultural, spiritual, and personal foundations, right? So in all of these things, you know, it's a structure for me to follow. It motivates me, and it's put in place there. So if I don't know where I'm going, if I feel like I'm directionless or lost in a sense, I don't fall to the temptations, urges, and impulses that I have in my unconscious state. You know, I don't reach for those things. I just reach for the system that I've put in place because it's right in front of me, you know.
Can you break down the system for us, please? The physical. What is physical like entail for you?
So physical is simple. So it's basically input and output, you know. What do you put into your body? What do you actually do with your body? You know, nutrition, sleep, diet, hygiene, which is not just like a personal hygiene. It's also sleep hygiene. And then you can even extend that to mental hygiene as well. You know, what you're actually inputting into your brain, what you're consuming, you know, what kind of content you're consuming, what you actually creating, you know. So physical is all about, I guess, the vessel that you actually have. You're trying to maintain that vessel because that vessel is the thing that's going to actually take you towards your goals.
Like and mental?
The way I think of it is like you're a captain of your ship, right? And you're trying to get from point A to point B. And the way you do that is through the ship and a system of habits, of repeated, non-negotiable habits, which are going to take you towards your destination, right? But that's more about the personal as well, to be honest. The mental, that's just you want clarity, you want focus, you want to actually have an understanding of your brain, knowledge, understanding, wisdom of what's going on. All right. And all of these things, I feel like a mindset is such an important thing to get a hold of,
Shout out to the Kaibalion.
Shout out to the Kaibalion, man.
Mummies that are standing wisdom. Sorry, keep going.
Fire. It's true, man. You want, because the mind is where is the operating system, it's where everything is run through, everything that we perceive comes through the mind, external stimulation is processed through the mind, and then we internalize it and express it in a different way, so it's so important to have your an idea, not an idea, but like what's the word I'm looking for?
I guess a system, or like a way of, like a conception of it.
Like, I guess it would be like a concept, of what your mindset is, because it's your mindset which really kind of controls how you act and influences how you behave, right? So you want to get your mindset in order, of course, and that's what the mental foundation is all about. The spiritual one is because I believe everyone, even atheists, we all have like some higher, we have not a higher self, but like some higher attribute, some higher ideal that we're always trying to reach, whether that's belief in yourself or belief in God. We all have to have like some spiritual experience that kind of animates our movements, and pushes us towards where we're trying to get to. All right. And for me, I chose God, because I feel like he gave me the grace and the mercy that I needed in my time of struggle, in my time of degeneracy, basically. And so that really helped me to forgive myself as well, which is the most important thing, for all the negative actions I did during my psychosis, during the bad decisions I made, and all of those things. Creative, because I feel like the creative is self-explanatory. Expression is so fundamental to human growth and self-improvement, because without expression, we need to express our ideas. I say depression is a result of repressing or suppressing your identity, your purpose, your goals, your values. It's you not acting in a way which is integral to your identity or to your spirit, to your soul, or whatever you want to call it, to your psyche, and the way to overcome that depression is to actually start expressing yourself, whether that's through journaling, whether that's through articulation, making videos, music production, game development. These are all the things I'm trying to do to creatively express myself. And that's basically what you just, art. We're all artists at the end of the day, because we take our external experience of the world, internalize it, and express that in a different way, and it's unique to everyone, because two people can see the same laptop and, think completely different things. One could be a programmer, one could be a graphics designer, and they can use that laptop, the same laptop, in completely different ways, with a completely different skill set. And it's so important to just kind of express yourself,
In culture, I'm interested in culture. What does that mean?
Cultural, that's all to do with like history, basically. History, family, society, friends, just how you navigate in the world, in your external environment, basically. So it's just mainly just all of those things kind of culminate in how, like community, basically, how all of those things culminate into how we actually express ourselves to the world, because people like to say they don't care what other people think, but I'll be honest, I care what people think, I'll be honest, I actually care what other people think. So, and that influences us in a way that either pushes us to be our best self, or kind of causes us to hide away and be ashamed and be guilty and be, afraid. And I think it's important to actually tackle these cultural foundations, because we can't live this life alone. We're not lonely creatures. We're not individual creatures. We're interdependent creatures. We rely on each other for our success, for the betterment of our community and our society and our health and well-being,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like that's what most people struggle too, is to implement into the culture, because a lot of these journeys we might go on by ourselves, but when we start existing in the culture is when we start feeling like we're othered. We start feeling like we're like, dead. People don't like us. People don't think like us, and so we feel like we're alone. And then we start acting like that. Then it becomes a problem where you kind of perpetuate those cycles. So it's like once you figure out maybe there is no like set steps to do, but I think when you figure out the cultural, like to even get there, you'll have to figure out all these other things,
exactly.
So, but once you figure out,
you work together. Yeah, the foundations work together. It's true.
Yeah. I feel like that will give you more of like a strength to actually go out there and implement in the world. Last question I have for you, bro, is what would you say to someone that's currently in the middle of what you just went through, that isn't at the end yet, but isn't at the beginning? They've been there. That when you were talking about just being stagnant, having no meaning, no identity, just being stuck there, and felt like they were stuck. What would you say to them, having been through that, as someone, sometimes you get people talking, they feel like they're talking down on people.
Yeah.
You've just been through that, and you kind of sometimes still say that you're still going through it, trying to make sure that every day is like, you're, showing up for yourself.
Yeah.
What would you say to them? Maybe not even in terms of just like, encouragement, just how would you speak to them? And to make it even more specific, how do you speak to your old version of yourself?
Ooh, honestly, it might sound like information you've heard before, but I genuinely think you have to start small. You have to start with the smallest thing you can do, the most minimum. I call it the minimum viable product, right? Which is kind of just which is an idea, which is just like the least amount of work you can do to actually ship the product across. So when you're trying to actually rebuild your life, the whole goal is to transform, right? The whole goal is to actually take action and take the steps to get there. And in order to take the action, I feel like it has to be something you want to do. If you don't want to do it, you're probably not going to do it, So you're going to have to actually do the smallest possible thing that will push you towards your goal. For me, I started by drinking water. That was it. Drink water. That was it. If I drank water, that was a successful day. And that's something I'm going to do anyway because I get thirsty. I'm human. I'm going to drink water. So it's like you start small. And once you start small and start taking action, I will say action is the most important thing as well, You have to take action, You can't just sit there and do nothing with your life. No matter how comfortable, no matter how familiar it feels, you have to take action. And do the smallest thing you can do, That's going to make you do it, I think that's the way forward because once you start taking the action, you start building clarity, you start building momentum, and that kind of compounds into different actions. It's like, oh, I drank water today. Good for me. Maybe I can do something else. Brush my teeth, maybe. Good for me. I'll make a good breakfast today. Good for me. And it just builds upon itself slowly but surely. People say 1% a day. I say 0.01% a day, man. Shit. Anything which is going to push you forward. One word in the journal, just hi, one little thing, one line on the drawing paper, and that could spark so much more, because you could take one step, but on some days you might take 10. Some days you might take 50. Sometimes you might not take a step at all, But just take action, man. Take action. Time waits for no man. Time waits for no man.
Exactly, bro. Memento mori, as we like to say.
Memento mori, yes, indeed.
Memento mori, like remember that you will die, and I think that's in those moments of just like kind of stagnation, you have to come to terms with yourself, and like you did, where you have to look at yourself, or like I did, where you have to look at yourself and ask yourself the question, like what is the meaning of your life? Like what like not in the grand scheme of like conceptually philosophical, but like right now, what does it mean for me to be alive? What am I doing with this time? Why am I here? Like what is this right second? And then if you can answer that question, then you start somewhere, because it might not be the one that gives you the kind of like gets you out of that, do stuff and change your life, but it's the first step, because you recognize, you affirm your existence in that moment.
Exactly.
You affirm that you're supposed to be here. You affirm that this means something to you. And then, like,
it's true.
As human beings, we move towards what we think, what we want.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just make sure you're moving towards in the right way.
Exactly. Because I feel like even in those states, man, we all have an idea of what ideal, what belief, or what is going to actually help us to push us forward. We all have an idea. We just choose not to engage with it. So I feel like, yeah, we genuinely know what we need to do to actually move forward. So we just have to actually cross that barrier, that fear barrier, you know, of I don't want to do this. This is too hard. I can't do it. It's difficult. And actually just forget all of that and just attempt it anyway, you know. It's worth an attempt.
It's worth an attempt. One life is worth an attempt.
It's worth an attempt, man. Shit.
Bro.
That was fire, man.
Bro,
I love that meme, man.
Bro, I know.
It's cold.
That meme is so cold. And honestly, bro, I think like you embody that, man. I love that. I'm so proud of you, brother. I'm so proud of you, man. It's been an absolute honor to see you kind of like go to the depths and bring yourself back, you know, kind of like, and I know how hard it's been, man, because I've been there, and I think, yeah, you it's inspiring. I think you should be really, really proud of yourself to be there. I know you still got way more to go. You know how really potential that I think you can do or what you can achieve already. But just like, you know, to go through something difficult to bring yourself back from that is also kind of like, you know, takes a lot. You learn a lot about yourself and learn about a person too. Shout out to you, bro.
And I appreciate that so much, man. I appreciate that so much. It means a lot, you know, because this journey's been wild. So many ups and downs, you know, so many failures, so many mistakes, and so much uncertainty, especially. And it feels like, yeah, I kind of have an idea of where I'm going. So it's like, I'm going to be okay, man. I'm going to be all right.
We're going to be all right.
I'm going to be all right.
Brother, thank you so much for speaking to me today. It was an absolute pleasure.
Of course, man.
I hope we do this soon.
100%, man. 100%.
And guys,
thank you for having me as well.
Of course, bro. Anytime, bro. You're one of my favorite guests to have, man. You know already, bro. Whenever we sit down, man, these conversations are amazing. I think I learn something from them all the time. So thank you for gracing us with your wisdom again, bro.
Yeah, no problem, man. Anytime, man. Anytime. Man.
And thank you guys for watching. Until next time, peace.